All right, I'm not really sure why these are not printing correctly, but this should say transformations and congruence at the top. So you need to add that in there. Transformations and congruence. Both big words, but as we get started, you're going to be like, oh, these aren't so bad. So starting off with, we're going to talk about congruent figures. Congruent figures have the same size and shape, and they look pretty similar. So these two right here, these are congruent figures. When you have congruent figures or congruent shapes, the corresponding angles and the corresponding sides are congruent, meaning BA right here is 10 centimeters. RQ over here is also 10 centimeters. They're the same long corresponding, it's the same part of the shape on the congruent shape. We use that relationship of corresponding angles and shapes to find measurements of different angles and different sides. And the symbol we're going to use for congruence is this equal sign with this wavy guy on top. All right, so let's practice this. This is telling me the figures at the right are congruent. I know that this is going to talk about an angle because it has the angle sign in front of it. Angle ABC is congruent to QRS, where B and R are the vertex because there's the middle letters in my angle sign. So, what does QRS equal? I notice I have a question mark in here. Well, I know that corresponding angles and congruent shapes are congruent, which is kind of like being equal. ABC is 55. Therefore, QRS is also 55. And we're going to write the degree sign. Remember, it's not a temperature, so we don't need to add Fahrenheit or Celsius. I want you guys to go ahead and try this next one by yourself. Okay. Angle BCD is congruent to angle RST. They want to know, what is RST? Well, this one's 125 degrees, so its corresponding angle must also be 125 degrees. Our next one says BC is congruent to RS. If BC is 9 centimeters, then RS, the corresponding side, must also be 9 centimeters. Go ahead and try the fourth one by yourself. Okay, if CD is congruent to ST and CD equals 4, ST must also equal 4 centimeters. All right, down here, you guys got lucky because I forgot to make these blanks. And so we're just going to kind of talk about them real quick. This is congruent figures up here, figures that are the same. Down here, we're talking about transformations, or how a figure moves from one position to another. When we're talking about a transformation, the figure doesn't change its size and it doesn't change its shape. It just changes how it's sitting or how it's laying. So the first type we have is called a translation, which probably is a familiar term to you. A translation is when a figure moves in a straight direction. This is an example of a translation because it just moved to the right, or it moved to the left. It could also just move up, or it can move down, but essentially the shapes are going to look the same. A reflection is when a figure gives the mirror image over a line. So if I had a shape that looked like this, that's the reflection. You don't have to draw that unless you want to. It's not quite the same size, but you get the picture. It just kind of looks the opposite of itself. A rotation is when the shape might start out like this, but then the next one on the paper might look like that, or like that, or like that. Basically, the shape has just spun around. Those are really the three you're going to use. A glide reflection is when a translation happens, and then it's also reflected. But like I said, you're really not going to use that one. We're really going to focus on just these three. So tonight, you have two congruent figures and two congruent figures where you're going to have to find some angle and side measures. And then down here, you're going to have to talk about how some figures have transformed. You do not have to do the back part of the page. Good luck.